knowing that you are a veteran and you have probably you still work in the community with veterans, correct? So what do you say to people like that are in the position of like still hesitant to go to therapy and, get some help?
Kind of like touching base on what I said earlier. I was one of those people that was skeptical because I grew up thinking that mental health therapy and educating yourself is just taboo. You didn't talk about it. You don't tell your family your business to people you don't know. But it's nothing like that, right? It's whatever you make it. And if you want therapy to work, you can make therapy work. But it's not a magic pill. It doesn't happen. Definitely doesn't happen overnight. You have to be ready to accept what you're hearing, and be willing to change for the better. Sometimes you're going to hear things that are very difficult to swallow. I mean, it's not an easy journey by any means. That's not what therapy is there for. But there is light. If you do the work, if you really dig deep, I think that you can get some solstice out of it. You can get something out of it. But if you were a skeptic like me, I'm the person that I have to hear somebody tell me like, it fucking works. It works. Okay. It fucking works. You just have to, strap on your boots and work on it and be ready to accept the truth and be willing to make those changes.
And do you think that you had any support from the military, like your higher ranks and stuff, to go and get help like during that time? I know you said you were in for 8 years. Did they talk about it?
So my therapy didn't start until after I got out of the service. Right. But as far as while I was in to talk about, no, they're not in the time that I was in. Like, no, there's no talking about going to a therapist or mental health or any of that.
And I feel like that's still a thing now, from what I understand. And that's why I was asking you, is like, if you were kind of maybe more supported and more encouraged to go even during those 8 years, like they had that more, I don't know. I would hope that would make more of a difference for the community.
So I guess a better way of saying is that I'm sure that there were programs. I'm sure there's programs while I was there. But if you're asking me as a soldier, it's a bit of an oxymoron because you're asking me to go talk about my feelings when I'm supposed to be a fucking bad bitch. I mean, that's really True. What it boils down to. And you just take it.
And it's funny because one of my younger clients that I'm working with, we're looking at the different branches, and she's a female, and she's always wanted to be a Marine. And so, but we had to really, we did some research, and we're even looking at like ADHD and, medication and protocols and academics and IEPs. And there's some branches now, and I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness. And there's still a disconnect. And again, but it comes down to, you're training to be a soldier. There is no emotions. You can't take it personally. You are in there to make sure that you don't die, and so it is like, even when I was hearing Nella, say that, and I know, you're with military, your family. And so, I mean, my family's a lot of ex-military too, but it is hard because it's just like what I see, it's the transition coming out, because again, it's like, even if you look at like attorneys, and sometimes people are like, oh, well, my attorney, such a this and this and that. I'm like, they can't be emotional. There's no emotions in court. It's this court of law. You don't want somebody in there that gets emotional, because then it starts to have you start to get like, oh, wait, and unfortunately, like, oh, that's a female with she would, no, you can't, that's enemy, so it's hard. It's hard because you want that, but definitely what I would say is, how can we transition? Like, because I know we've got the VA, we've got all these things, and I know we've got a lot more that's happening, I would believe. But that would be my biggest thing, is like, even like with the prisoners, I know, because you do a lot of the forensics, is transitioning back into civilian life. And that's where I've seen, and I know, I mean, I've had quite a few, veterans that I've worked with and everything. That's been the struggle, of breaking down the,
So this is why I ask you about like the different programs too, is because yes, you had to be a fucking bad bitch, right? Like that was your thing. You can't die.
Reagan, you're welcome. She said it.
You had to be strong. You had to just focus on, the eye on the prize, whatever it was that your mission was. My take on it about therapy is not just, okay, let's talk about your feelings and what happened to you about your past. My take on why I think it's so important, even while you're active duty and in the services, you become a better person, which then creates a transition into, okay, I'm not only a better person now because I understand myself. I understand why I react to certain things or why I'm hypersensitive to things, why I'm not sensitive to other things. So once you understand that and you're going through, let's say you're active duty in 4 years and you're jumping out of airplanes, yeah, you're not necessarily going to want to cry while you're about to jump out of an airplane. However,
I was like, she did.
No, I didn't.
No,
she
did.
But she did. I'm saying, like, if you were in therapy, I feel like therapy can also be that point of understanding why you even think the way you think, why you react the way you do. All that I think would make you an even better soldier at that time.
I agree.
So that's why I'm like, okay, yeah, it's not, I get the transition. Absolutely. I'm glad you obviously went to therapy after, but I feel like if they knew, the military would know that they can be better soldiers, even though they're in therapy. They don't have to just say, okay, I talk about my feelings and why you're sad. No, but it's more than that.
What makes you think they don't already know that?
Oh, that's a good point.
Here we go.
That's a great point. Yeah, I know. There's more to that.
Yeah, there's a lot more to that. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that's very oniony. That's very layered. So just know that, yes, the programs are there, especially for veterans, right? So active Army, I can't speak on. I can go to the VA right now. They have multi-crisis lines. They have programs now they're there, not to say that you don't have to wait months and months and months. That's where the community should come in and say, let's get the overflow. So people outside of the VA, they're called a community. So anytime that the VA has an overflow, which is pretty much a lot all the time, especially mental health, we go into the community. The problem with that is that we don't get to choose where we go. Then we go back to that problem of, I'm going to go to a therapist that I'm not comfortable with. And now I'm going to have to tell you not only about what's wrong with me, I have to tell you all of my trauma all over again. They don't want to read notes. They want to know from the beginning. And it's like, you understand? So yes, I agree with you very much so that the education should be embedded. I can't speak on the active part, at least for when I was in, because of my culture and because I was a soldier, the last thing I was going to do was go seek therapy. And I hate to say that, but because my mentality was, I am a fucking badass bitch, I'm not going to seek help. And things did happen while I was in the military, and I didn't at all. However, when I got out, the military knows about it now. So, but 25 years later, this is the byproduct. So you're right. It's a catch-22 double-edged sword thing going on there. But yes, that's very layered. Very layered.
And I'm a piggyback right there. It's the same in athletics. It's the same in sports. Because again, when you're thinking about, I got to be the top soldier, I got to be the top athlete, I got to be this, if anybody thinks that there's a crack in the dam, I'm going to, I can't be what I'm supposed to be in this ideological.
I think that's life though. Also it's
right.
If you're the strongest person in your family and everybody depends on you, how dare you crack? So I think it's life.
That is exactly it.
Because I know, especially in the African American community, you have like the, people that are like the matriarchs or the patriarchs that are really strong. And it's like, okay, everybody comes and dumps off on you, but who do you dump off on? So that's just. And
it's a bunch of those people in the military, and the ones that are unhinged or coming undone at the seams,
Mm-hmm.
they get out. They're
Right.
not in. So
And
they're-
sometimes that's why they go in, because they've had all this responsibility and it's like, okay, well, I can check out, but then realize, those problems or those issues follow.
not only or intensify. I've seen a lot. So yes, it's like anything else, whether it's athletics or the military, it is sort of an oxymoron.